So on the flight down, something really bizarre happened to me. I get on the flight, and I put on my headphones, and I start listening to a podcast, which is the hottest podcast, #1 podcast right now. And it starts out as a murder mystery. And they did this unforgivable thing, which is they released all 7 episodes at once, which for someone like me, where when I take a strengths assessment, number 25 out of 25 is self-regulation, is a problem. So I start listening, and I'm like, next. This is the first time that I've ever flown somewhere, landed, and prayed for another plane to be at our gate so that I didn't have to stop listening. There's something that happens to us when we're placed in a state of mystery. So when we enter this world where the scene is set, and there's a story about to unfold, and there's something curious that's about to happen, and we don't know how it's going to end, something happens to us. We want more of it, and we can't stop. It fills us with a sensation of thrill, of excitement. And we know that this is true because if you look at all of the media that we consume these days, that's the stuff that we can't stop consuming. Last summer, I drove up to drop my daughter off at summer camp with my wife. And the whole time up, what do? We listen to an audiobook. Great Lee Child's book, murder mystery, starts out 6 hours up, drop off the kid, next day, 6 hours. Now there's a problem with this. 6 plus 6 is 12 hours in the car. The audiobook is 18 hours. So we end up for the next 2 weeks, every night going to bed, setting the sleep timer for 30 minutes. So over 2 weeks, we finish this thing. There's a second problem with this, by the way, which is that I fall asleep in 5 minutes and my wife doesn't. So every morning I'm like, hon, what happened? But if you think about it, we are consumed by being placed in this sort of like surreal state of not knowing what comes next. The shows that are huge on TV are all crime shows. The story-driven shows where something is set in motion, we don't know how it's going to end. Right? Mystery does something to us that fills us with wanting more, with thrill and desire. But mystery in another context can destroy us. So I want to take you a step back in time with me. I'm a recovering lawyer. Right? A couple of raised hands I just saw over there. And I was recently out of my career. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I need to do the next logical thing, which of course is to open a yoga studio. So I'm walking, looking for a location in my neighborhood, and I see beautiful picture window, for rent sign. It's like 3 blocks from where I live. I go running back home. I pick up the phone, get on the phone with the broker. I go back over the next day. We go up the stairs. He opens the door. I peek my head in. It's a floor in a building, a 115-year-old building. And I'm looking left, and I'm looking right. And it's decorated in this style I would probably affectionately call cracked den chic. It's perfect for a yoga studio. So I go running back home. I tell my wife. She comes and sees it. A couple of days later, I find myself at the top of a tower signing a 6-year lease for a floor in a building. I'm married. I have a 3-month-old baby and a new home. This is exciting, terrifying, and exciting. The city, by the way, is New York. The date is September 10th, 2001. So I wake up the next morning, and my city is in flames. And my mind goes immediately to where everybody else who lived in New York went, which is, who did I lose? And then the second thing is, once I realized that nobody got out without losing somebody in the city that day, what have I done? Starting a business under the best of circumstances is filled with uncertainty, with mystery. We don't know how it's going to end. But starting it in this sea of pain, we didn't know what was coming next. We didn't know if this was the first of many. We didn't know on any given day what was going to happen. And I struggled with this, but I decided eventually to move forward. because we were about to create a company that would serve a community of healing at a time in New York when it was never more needed. But every day, I would wake up, and I was sweating. And every week, I would sit on the couch with my hand in my head, wondering how this is going to end. We would get good signals. We were growing. People were embracing it. And still every day, the deep, deep mystery of not knowing was destroying me. The question is, why is it that some mystery thrills us and we desire it, and some mystery kills us and we fear it? And I began to really explore this because I was made to make stuff. From the time that I was a kid, I have been a maker and a creator. And if you are going to start anything, you are going to need to step into this place of long, sustained, deep mystery. So what's the difference? And the difference comes down to a single word, which is stakes. Stakes. When you're consuming media, when you're reading a book, when you're buying something where it's a story and you're reading about somebody else, right? That's mystery where the stakes for us personally are really low. It's a couple of bucks and a couple of hours of our time. We got nothing at stake on a personal level, even though the people that we're reading about or learning about or watching or listening to do, right? So when the stakes are low, we love mystery. We want more and more of it. When the stakes start to raise, though, when it gets higher and higher, and we're personally invested, when we become the protagonist in the hero's journey, and we don't know how it's going to end, mystery plus high stakes, for most of us, it destroys us. But here's the thing. You cannot do anything worth doing in life without mystery and high stakes. Because stakes plus mystery equals possibility and impact. If you take away either one, you lose both. And I don't think that you guys are sitting in this room right now because you want to live a life of impossibility and low impact. So what do we do with that? Right? If the path to possibility and impact requires us to enter this state of high-stakes mystery that so many of us suffer through, what do we do with that? Is there a way for us to be okay in this place? And we point to these outliers in the world, the Steve Jobs of the world, who seem to just thrive on this stuff. And we think that it's either a thing that you have or you don't have, and I don't have it. My whole life, I never felt I did. But then I started asking a different question. I said, well, maybe that assumption is wrong. What if the ability to go to this place was trainable? And that became a quest of mine for years and years and years, and eventually became my second book. What I learned was that there are, in fact, a very small number of people that are wired when they hit adulthood to be okay in that place of super high stakes mystery. But most of us, including many of the people who are the most famous creators, leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, founders, they're not those people. They found ways to bring things into their life, to be okay as they step into the abyss of high-stakes mystery in the name of possibility and impact. So I started to deconstruct what are all these different things, and I have interviewed hundreds of people over the last few years and deconstructed this in my own life and my own ventures. And I want to share 3 things that have really stood out to me. 1, chunking mystery. Now, we hear a lot of talk about the importance of having a vision, a big, grand, world-changing vision. And we would all love to participate in life and to serve on that level. But for so many of us, the grand nature of it seems so vast. The path from where you are right now to that place, so fraught, so filled with the unknown, the stakes so high because if you fail big, that we just don't even start. So what I'm going to suggest is that you hold your vision lightly, but you hold the first step tightly. Know where you want to go, and then let that go. And then think only about the very next step in front of you. There's a whole Japanese management philosophy called Kaizen. And it's built around this. And huge, huge corporations have been built on this philosophy and grown and become innovators. And the reason it works is because it changes the psychology of innovation and creativity and possibility and leadership and impact. It stops us from shutting down in the face of high-stakes mystery, because all we have to focus on is this step. And what we find is that when we get to this step, if we also then bring others into it, those we seek to serve, and ask, how we doing? Very often they give us the information we need to take the next step. And even more interesting, the next step is not the step we thought it would be had we not asked them and brought them into the process. So chunk mystery. 2, normalize it. What does that mean? The fact that you are sitting in this room today, right now, tells me something. It tells me that you're a little bit weird. So am I. It tells me that there are things about the way you see the world that people around you do not understand and very likely do not support. And that's okay. But when you do that in the context of having to take action and make decisions, and the stakes get higher and higher, and you don't know how it's going to end because you're doing something truly new and different, if we do that alone, that freaks us out big time. And we very likely step back and don't do it. One of the most powerful unlock keys for action in the face of high-stakes mystery is normalize this by doing it with people. In this room right now, we've had over 1,000 people who see the world in some way similarly to you, which is different than so many others. When you surround yourself with people who are also co-creating, parallel playing to create their own things that the world doesn't understand, that kind of freaked out state becomes normalized, and the psychology becomes much calmer. And you get much more comfortable living in that space long enough for the truly big ideas, innovations to emerge, and for you to do the great work you're here to do. This, in my opinion, is why co-working is exploding in the United States right now, because there's a mass shift to individuals, to solopreneurs, to entrepreneurs. And we want to be in this with other people because it makes us feel okay taking those risks. High stakes plus mystery, possibility, and impact. There's a third thing here, and it's called reframing. The minute we go to that place where we're thinking to ourselves, wow, the stakes are getting really big. There's a lot that I don't know. I have no clue how this is going to end. The question that repeats maniacally all over in our heads is, what if I'm the only one who thinks this? What if I fail? What if I fail? Our brains are wired with something called the negativity bias. In prehistoric days, it probably stopped us from being killed by big, fanged animals because it makes us assume that the worst is in a space of the unknown. But today, it keeps us from taking action in the face of mystery where things matter. So it's important to ask the what if I fail question. Don't stop there. We're going to add 3 questions to that. How will I recover? Tell that story. What if I do nothing? What most of us will find is the story we tell in response to that question is actually the most terrifying thing, because it means that we live a sideways sliding life. We're not here for that. You're not in this room for that. And the last one is, what if I succeed? What if I succeed? Tell that story, feel it, live it, breathe it. And then instead of saying, what if I fail, and hitting spin and making that your inevitable reality, give yourself other stories to tell, to become your realities. And you'll find that that actually makes the process of taking action, those chunked steps in the face of really high stakes and mystery where you don't know how it's going to end, it makes it so much easier. Chunk, normalize, reframe. So circling back to the yoga studio, I'm about a year in and I'm starting to get okay. I'm coming out of the abject daily fear, sweats, and occasional crying, and a lot of whining. And I'm realizing that I want to actually go bigger. I want to have a national impact and national acclaim. So I think to myself, okay, how do we do that? Get into the media. So, first, that's big. Maybe I want to be on TV, or maybe I want to be in big magazines. I chunk it down. Step 1, I find the name of the head of the Human Performance Lab at a local university, and I say, hey, are you interested in running the first ever study that measures how many calories the type of yoga that we teach burns? He chuckles and says, my grandma does yoga. No. I say, just do me. I convince him. I get on a train out there. I get all wired up and have things coming out of my face, and they're measuring everything. And 15 minutes later, a team is in the laboratory like, what was that? We get together a full-scale study, and as soon as they greenlight it, I then find the name of the fitness director at one of the biggest fitness magazines in the world, and I reach out to her and say, do you want an exclusive on the first ever study to measure how many calories this style of yoga burns? Yes, she says. She's in. And she also wants to be a subject in the study. So we actually clear this with the university, and we go through the whole thing. Now, the stakes on this sucker are high for me because this is national exposure, and I don't know what the results are going to be. I knew they were good with me, but I could just be some freak of nature. I don't know what happens when we get a whole bunch of people in there, right? But I'm following the steps. Turns out, at the end of all this, the numbers are pretty amazing. So we go our separate ways, and a couple months later, she calls me up and she says, hey, listen, I just wanted to let you know, we're doing a story on this. The university let us release the one bit of data we wanted, calories per minute burned. But it's too bad you guys are a smaller, local New York business because we've got like 5 million national readers. I said, that's really funny you mention it because we're actually just wrapping post-production on our first video. She says, that's great, what's it called? I said, Vinyasa Heat Live. She said, how much is it? I said, $19.95. And where can people get it? I said, at our website. She says, great, we'll put it in the article. So I hang up the phone and I look at my number 2. We have to make a video. And we did. High stakes mystery. That launched a media division, which became a substantial part of our company. And my invitation to you is to go to that place, is to use these tools to rise up and not just settle for low stakes, low impact, no possibility, but enter a place of mystery in the name of possibility and impact. Change your life, change the world. Embrace mystery. Thank you.